I would like to thank Antoine Wood and Caressa McKnight for informing me about this story. And also I have to shout out the one LVZ because he was actually the first person that I actually heard do a commentary about this individual in this picture by the name of Taemon Blair. And there is one big question mark just looming over this entire situation, and that is who killed Taemon Blair? Because I refuse to believe that this man committed suicide, especially when you look at the details of the story. I refuse to believe it. So this is his image right here, and I'm glad I found this image because when I typed his name in, they kept pulling up pictures of his mugshot, and they love to put that out there. I wouldn't be surprised if they put it out there. So I'm glad that I found this image right here, and you know it looks like he graduated and he's holding an honor roll certificate. So the guy was clearly very intelligent, but the biggest mystery is that he, worked as a truck driver, and then one day somebody found him hanging in the back of his truck. Now, like I said, black people, if they want to commit suicide, and the suicide rate among black people, if you want to talk about, if you want to put all the races of people in this establishment together, black people are low on the totem pole as far as committing suicide. And if black people wanted to commit suicide, they wouldn't do it by hanging. I don't care what these reports say. But whenever they say a black person was lynched or they were hanging and they said that was suicide, that just know that's some bullshit. I refuse to believe that this man or any other black person who was found dead and they were hanging committed suicide. I refuse to believe that. I remember when they said it was a story how I think it was down in Georgia, they found this black man hanging from a tree and he committed suicide. Now, how in the world was he able to hang from a tree and his feet was like really high off the ground? Someone had to give him a boost to put him up there. And there was nothing there to help prop him up. There was nothing around, like no step stool, no ladder, nothing. Somebody put him up there. The most recent one we heard was about that woman, that activist whose son was found hanging in her backyard. And I didn't really hear any much more about that situation. I think they try to deem that as a suicide, but no one's really buying it. Like nobody. The whole thing about black people hanging themselves as a suicide is becoming about as old as white people saying that a black person attacked them, or a white woman saying a black man tried to rape them. It's getting to that point where that whole narrative just starts to get tossed out the window because it's old, it's tired. Like they can't come up with anything else. I mean, if they can say that Kendrick Johnson killed himself in the manner that you saw him when he was deceased, nothing will stop them from lying about saying a black person committed suicide by hanging themselves. But let me go ahead and read this article. Authorities have ruled the hanging death of 21-year-old Taemon Blair a suicide. They already did it. They did not do a thorough investigation on this guy. This guy, before anyone else ever heard about it, many people don't even know who this guy is. His name did not even come up on any major news outlet except for maybe on a local level. And that was it. They didn't talk about it on a national scale. And the reason why they like to label stuff like this as a suicide is because they don't want to do an investigation. And if they do an investigation, that means that's more money that they got to pay out to get it done. And that means that it could actually lead them to the person who's actually involved with killing this guy. So they figure if they rule it a suicide, that means they don't have to investigate anything, which means the person who did it can walk away from this scot-free. However, his family members are not convinced and are calling for police to continue investigating his death. According to the Allen County Coroner's Office in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Blair, a Charlotte, North Carolina native, was found dead on March 14th. Now, that says March 14th, and I'm just now talking about this on March 28th. And it's not because I didn't want to talk about it. It's because nobody really was talking about it. Like I said, the one LVZ was the only one that I know of who did a video talking about him. The only person I know who did a video about him. And I think that was even after March 14th, if I'm not mistaken. Is it that he was discovered hanged in the tractor trailer he had been driving for his job? First off, who would hang themselves in the back of a tractor trailer? That seems like a very odd place to hang yourself to me. Like, it really does. And he was driving that for work. So you mean to tell me he just pulled over to the side of the road and said, "This, I'm going to end my life, and I'm just going to get this whatever he was hanging from, hopefully they mention in the article, and put it somewhere that it can hold up from, and and just hang myself in the back of the truck and just like sit there and hope somebody will find me." I would believe him running into oncoming traffic before I believe this. At least that would be more believable. The coroner's office ruled his cause of death as asphyxia due to hanging and claimed it was a suicide, but Blair's family, speaking to Fox 46, remained unconvinced. I would be unconvinced too, especially if he was not suicidal. We just want him to get justice. That's all we want. We just want to find out exactly if somebody did it, who did it, and why, and we want to open it back up to see. Blair's older brother D. Smith told the news station. His family claimed that the young man had no reason to kill himself and believed that foul play had a hand in his death. Smith started a GoFundMe campaign to help with funeral costs for the 21-year-old, which has raised more than $7,000 of his $10,000 goal as of Wednesday night. In the GoFundMe description, Smith reiterated that he did not think that his brother killed himself. He was 6'5". Now, pay attention to that. Remember, a tractor trailer, he's 6'5", which means it would be very hard to convince people that he killed himself in a tractor trailer and he's 6'5". That means his feet would still be touching the floor. 6'5" is fairly tall. That's basketball height right there on a professional and even on a collegiate level. I thought to myself, how could he hang himself inside of a truck when he's so tall? This is so devastating for our family, so unexpected, Smith wrote. If this wasn't a suicide, I really hope that the police will find out who killed Taemon. It's just a lot of unanswered questions for them to just rule it a suicide and just sweep it under the rug like it was nothing. You know, it doesn't surprise me because if y'all remember back in, I forgot what year it was, you had what's his name was Lacey, last name was Lacey, the young black boy, 17 years old, and they said that he was messing with this woman who happened to be a white woman who was like 35 years old, and all of a sudden he went missing, and then they found him hanging somewhere, and they tried to say it was a suicide. And when they said that he was connected and was having this relationship with this white woman, which, by the way, I don't know what the age of consent is in North Carolina, but if it's 18, they should have got her on statutory rape charges. But I think somebody found out about their relationship, most likely a white male, got upset, and they killed him, and then they lynched him. But they tried to say that his death was a suicide as well. I forget his name, but someone let me know what is in the comments. I know his last name was Lacey, but I remember that. And you really didn't hear much about that ever again. They didn't even really grill the woman he was involved with. It almost reminded me somewhat of Emmett Till. Except he was actually involved, what they say he was involved with this woman in a sexual way. On social media, others have also voiced their suspicions about the case. Someone said Taemon Blair was lynched a few days ago in Fort Wayne, Indiana. In 2019, let his name be spread. He did not commit suicide. He was murdered. Someone else said, what happened to Taemon Blair? Hashtag justice for Taemon. Someone said Taemon Blair, 21 years old, straight A student, West Charlotte High School graduate, brother, son, soon to be father, truck driver, lynched in his trailer of his 18-wheeler on March 15th in Fort Wayne, Indiana. How come this isn't being splashed all over the media? And that's what makes it even more sad. He was about to be a father. Now his child will never know their dad. And this guy drove trucks. That means he was making a pretty decent living. Truck drivers make a good amount of money because you know they gotta drive cross country, and it's a strenuous job. Like, I really feel for those truck drivers. A lot of times when you hear about truck drivers getting into accidents, is because they've driven long hours and they get very little rest because they have to get from point A to point B in a certain amount of time, and they have deadlines to meet, especially, you know, because they're making a lot of deliveries. It's a sad situation all the way around. Like, I really feel, you know, for his family. Let's see, what else did they say. I'm also going to post the link to his GoFundMe down in the description as well, because they posted that up as well. It says the death also drew attention from hip hop artist T.I., who shared an image of Blair on his Instagram in a post that questioned why his death wasn't splashed all over social media. This is a sad case all the way around, but I, for one, do not believe that this man committed suicide. I do not believe it, especially because before the brother even mentioned his height being 6'5", I'm just sitting there like, who would hang themselves in the back of a tractor trailer that you drive for work? Like, that just seems like the most weirdest place to want to hang yourself. And then when he threw in the fact that he was 6'5", I'm like, yeah, like, there's no way this happened. Something tells me that somebody probably got to him. They most likely probably beat him up. He could have been jumped. And the thing is, I would not be surprised if he was killed before he was hung. Because you got to think, this guy was 6'5". That's tall, which means he's most likely towering over many people. It's very rare that you're going to come across a hardcore group of people who are 6'5" and up, unless they are playing basketball. And I highly doubt that the people that he ran across who did this to him were ball players, at least tall ball players, if they play ball at all. So I truly believe that he was murdered. And the fact that they like to close, see, the thing is, when they rule it a suicide, that's them closing the case. They didn't even spend a week on this before they ruled it a suicide. I said, oh, he was hanging, suicide. You know what's so crazy? Back in the day when our ancestors were lynched, some of them but declared that a suicide too. I wouldn't be surprised if they declared it a suicide even after they took those postcard pictures and to mail off to their families. It's like, oh, he committed suicide. Let's just go take a picture in front of it and, you know, send it off to the families and whatnot. But I offer my condolences to his family and everything like that. And I really feel bad for his unborn child. They will never know their dad. Like, this is very sad. Like, that is sad. And he was probably excited about becoming a dad. Like, especially when it's your firstborn. And he was young. He was 21. Young. Had his whole life ahead of him. Had a decent career, made a decent living to provide, to do what a man is supposed to do, and this shit happens. It's always the good ones. But y'all let me know what you think about this down in the comments, and I'll talk to you in the next one.